With season 3 of Ted Lasso coming out, we wanted to get together some of our Agile friends and talk about how the show and cast relate to the work that we do and the things we see out in the field. Or pitch.
Welcome to Agile After Dark, the podcast that addresses Agile topics not talked about in the light of day. I'm your host, Greg Adams-Woodford, and with me, virtually, is my co-host, Brandon Gartley.
Hey, happy holidays, bud. Excited about this episode. I think it's going to be an amazing one.
Well, it's going to be really interesting because I don't think people would ever recognize what the topic could be, and I think it's going to be really great. And the guests are awesome as well, obviously. So, and our other amazing co-host, Jessica Gallagher
You're getting
from
better every time.
Minnesota,
Jesse G.
Much
from
closer.
Minnesota. She's here, and she is the expert in coaching, and we're always excited to have her because number one, she's so informative and has so much subject matter expertise. But this particular topic, I think, is something that's in her wheelhouse, was just coaching. And so we're so happy to have Jessica to join us again.
Real excited to be here, actually. I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation.
With us today also is we have two people who are really excited to be a part of Agile After Dark. One is Rennie Atkins and lives in Chicago and is one of the most interesting people, and I'm not saying that just because platitude, I mean it. One of the most interesting people I know, one of the smartest people I know, and he's got a particular point of view also on coaching like Jessica, so we're really excited to welcome him to the podcast.
Thank you, Greg. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited about it, like you said.
Also really excited to have with us today a young woman by the name of Lauren Burns from San Diego. My experience with Lauren is she met a bunch of my colleagues a while back, and they would not stop talking about this amazing person that they'd met. And then I got the opportunity to work with her myself, and they could not have been more right. An absolute joy of a human being. She's a fantastic Agilist. Really, really smart person, and a woman after my own heart, a total lover of dogs, and does all kinds of amazing things in the world for puppies. Excited to have you here, Lauren.
Excited to be here. I feel like I'm with all my heroes.
We may or may not hear some puppies, in the background, either from Jess or Lauren.
We'll try our best. And
we're happy with that.
It's all good.
We're happy with that.
We got some big barks in this household. Yeah, puppies is an understatement, but there'll always be puppies.
Indeed.
So Lauren, like, what excites you about what you do from a coaching perspective? What is your point of view, and why did you get into coaching, and what is your sort of focus?
So I'd say my strongest feeling about agility and coaching is the same thing that pulled me into it, where who says work isn't allowed to be fun, and that you have to, live to work and work to live, whatever, all the whole back and forth. Why can't it all just be together? Like, you like going to work and seeing your friends, and your friends become family, and everyone acknowledges their life outside of work. I remember when I first was exposed to business agility, it was like this group of people over in the corner who, one, looked like they were having way more fun than everybody else, and two, were also making way better work than anyone else. And I remember walking up to them. I was just like a young, fresh, new professional, basically my second week in the big business world. And I basically said, I want to be you guys when I grow up. And it has not let me down in the slightest over the past few years. It's my most productive projects. The work I've been most proud of has been when I'm on really good Agile teams. And those are also the times when I've had the most fun working. And so I believe in it 110%. And it's just not so nice to be able to say, yeah, I don't dread Mondays. And I don't get scared if I have an emergency and I have to miss something, because everyone understands, being a human and having a life. And also, everyone knows everyone really loves work and loves each other. It's a really good place to be. I could get all sappy about it, but I'll cut myself off there.
Well, and we're going to get into it more, but one of the things I really love about what you said is that it's it's not only the human interaction about having people, but enabling people to be good, right? Because that's, I think, the most important thing about being a coach, which is what we're talking about today, is that you can enable people who never thought that they had the capability to do that, and you can say, no, you can do this. Here's, there's a couple steps, whatever, the instruction is, whatever. Or instruction's a bad word, but Brandon will edit that out. But I think that's really important, in that the fact that you enable people and enrich people's lives, and that's what you care about, right? That's what you care about when you come to work every day, and that's amazing.
Totally, because I mean, it's what everyone says about how, you have to make mistakes to learn and do things like that. And it's so often that people feel so much pressure that they're afraid to try something new or even learn something new, because they want to stick to what's comfortable. And it's just 24/7 being in the growth mindset. And I don't think there's anywhere that I could be learning and growing as fast and in this having as much fun as I am right now.
That's a fantastic segue right directly into our topic today. So, Greg, if you want to hit us with the topic, I think everything that Lauren just said is so applicable to exactly what we're going to be talking about today.
I totally agree, and I definitely led before I should have. But this is a fantastic episode. It's that, we're, in the Agile Dark After Studios, and the topic is believe the Ted Lasso way. So for me, it's taking something that's, a pop culture, icon that most people just watch, and they get it. But to take that and to say, what are the lessons we can learn from that in a fun way, because it is fun, and it's a really very well written show, I would argue, and see what we can do with the subject about, coaching. And again, I would leave it to the three of you to talk about that.
Fantastic. So before we get too deep down the rabbit hole, for those of you who don't know, Ted Lasso is a television program about an American football coach who is asked to go be the soccer coach. I struggled there for a second because it's football everywhere else.
Yeah.
That should be the football, but let's let the soccer / anywhere else but America football coach of an English soccer team in the midst of kind of a chaotic time for that soccer team. And everybody believes everybody thinks that he is going to just drive this team into the absolute ground, and it turns out he was exactly the medicine that this team needs, and that he needed them. So that's kind of the sappy technical version, but there's a whole lot more to it.
But what's interesting is, so you can think about him. He could be from the upper Midwest. I'm making that point again.
He's from Kansas, right? I think he's
yeah,
from
he's
Kansas.
from Kansas. That's right.
Midwest.
Yeah.
But
It's not upper.
I think the thing about him is he's vulnerable, and he doesn't let, like, constructs of, in this case, soccer, in UK, to dictate what he does. He believes in what he does, right? Which is why we call it's believe. It's the Ted Lasso way. So I think that's the power in that. I really think that's what what I love about it is that he believes, and he he believes in spite of everything else, because everybody's telling him no. this is the dumb, you're dumb, like you shouldn't believe in this. This is the way it is. This is the way the corporation works. This is the way whatever. But he just he won't, he's relentless in believing.
Yeah, and for those of you who haven't seen Ted Lasso, we'll probably have some spoilers in the show, but I think you should listen anyway, because this is the type of show you really want to see how it all fits together. I mean, it came out kind of in the middle of the beginning of the pandemic, so I think it was the summer of 2020, and I think that's what a lot of the headlines that came out of it initially was, "This is the show we need right now." I think was kind of the quote that I saw over and over about the show, because it kind of it sets you up in a way, and we'll talk about some of the specifics because and how it's relevant to the stuff that we do. But it sets you up in a way you're like, oh, I know that character. I know that character. That's that stereotype. That's that stereotype. And as the show goes on, you start to see the many layers, and it kind of gets into like a gray area of what you initially maybe thought it was, which kind of gets us into some of the things with coaching. That'd be one of the first things I kind of always think about when I think about this show is you see certain characters that are part of it, and you think that they are what they are, and we run into that all the time. That senior developer, they think they know everything. Oh, that tester is just an introvert and doesn't talk. This person, that person, this leader just doesn't buy into it. That's just because they're stubborn. And so those are kind of the things that we run into a lot. And I'd just be curious to hear from Rennie or Lauren if there's other things in the show or kind of based off what I said that you'd want to build off of that.
No, I would like to build off of that. I thoroughly enjoyed the show, and Ted Lasso captured my heart really, like pretty fast. Coming from Wichita, Kansas, I'm very familiar with Kansas and Wichita.
You went to school there, right?
I went to school there.
Yeah,
and just the whole attitude and Wichita State, not exactly a Power 5 school for sports, football. And then be put in this situation where he's coaching this other European football team. And his and my knowledge of soccer is about the same. I actually learned more about soccer watching the show, like real talk. But the bottom line is it was clear right away that he connected with people. He only cared about the people that were in his life, about how to add to their lives, how to champion them in any way that he could, whether it's a biscuit in the morning or whether it's just a kind word or over a beer or whatever it might be. That's how we showed up. And that just resonated for me so well because that's how I want to show up.
I love that, Rennie. That it's like I love that being there for people, and showing up in the way that's going to be in service of whoever it is that you're there for and that you're working with. And it can be different for each person. And I think that it takes a lot of, Ted's got a lot of optimism. He is steeped in it. And it comes from deep within him. It's something that his whole body just resonates, right?
Yep.
But layered onto that optimism is this deep care for each individual person. And I think like you have to pay a lot of attention. You have to come at things with intentionality in order to show up in the way that's going to be most helpful in that moment, whether it's for the individual, whether it's for the team. It's what is going to be needed to be in service of to help enrich the lives of those around him. And I think he does that really intentionally. There are certain moments in that show where he's really he's constantly paying attention. It's from the little tiny clips that he has. He's listening deeply. He truly hears what's going on with individuals, and I think that that's something that that everybody could use a little bit more of is to both listen and to truly be heard. And I think that Ted does an amazing job of that.
And I think the thing that really impresses me about that character specifically, but also people who are leaders and coaches, is that there's compassion. So you listen and you understand how everybody has a different situation, right? And you're also vulnerable to saying, I don't know everything. I'm not, the end all be all or whatever. And if you have those two things, I think that's a critical thing in coaching, which I know you have, Jess, because just the way that I've interacted with you over the years. But I think those two, that compassion and vulnerability, I think you have to be vulnerable, right? He's totally vulnerable.
Yeah. I mean, the listening part, there's like a quote from that says, he says something like, you should do a TED Talk because right now you're getting a whole heap of TED listen.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even that I'm listening. It's just like, I'm really excited about what you're saying. So, I want you to know that. And that's super cool. It's just a neat thing. And yeah, and the vulnerability stuff, I'll talk about it a bit later, but because it's one of my favorite episodes. Yeah, that's where the gray area, I think, comes in the characters. And it kind of surprises other characters on the show. Like the owner, I knew I was going to be the one to do this. Rebecca. Yeah. Who's a great character in her own right? Talk about stereotypes. I was like, is this Major League all over again? Like, where a woman becomes the owner of a club and she wants to run it in the ground for various reasons, right? So, I was kind of surprised in her character and that they have some similarities with divorce and the repercussions of that on your personal and professional life. So there's a lot. I guess we're kind of talking to, and I want to kind of keep going on this track if we can. Is I think the easy thing for us to do as coaches is say, oh, he's a coach. So what are the things that he does as a coach? And we've touched on a few of them, which is listening and kind of being there for people. But what are some of the other things that you guys have seen just from like a coach to coach parallel? I'd be curious to hear what you guys have seen and thought about that. Because I know when I watch the show, I'm kind of like, okay, what is he doing? What technique is he using?
We were talking earlier, I think maybe pre-recording here about improv and the way I heard that was like the way we truly sense and respond to what's going on in the moment. And clearly I observed the character Ted Lasso do that all the time. And I feel like that's what I got. That's my stance, really, I guess, of my approach when I get up on Monday morning and I'm facing the week. It's like that's where I'm coming from. Now, don't get me wrong, I have a responsibility to know certain things. That's sort of like the price to play in the sandbox. But once you have your arms around some basic tenets of coaching and agility and what's generally practiced in the world, I think from there it's like you just settle into a place where you're able to bring yourself fully, not sort of prescribed in any way to any situation that you walk into.
Did you just say the price that it costs to play in the sandbox? Did you say that?
Yeah.
That is awesome. I've never heard that before, and I love that. And I'm gonna.
So you need to know Agile values and principles. You need to understand Scrum as the most popular framework used. You need to understand what scaling Agile might mean for companies, what is generally most appropriate in scaling it, the challenges that legacy organizations face, leaders in legacy organizations face, like that all stuff which is not that complex to figure out. And you want to be responsible and have your arms around that kind of concept as you go into these situations in real time and work with people, right? Because at the end of the day, we're coaching people to help them solve their complex problems.
Yeah. it's helping them figure out how to solve their own problems. And so we don't have to be the subject matter expert about SAP or, name it, but rather, and we get to be their champion. That's another coaching move, I think, that um, that is that that Ted does a great job of really believing in people. I mean, believe is
Yeah.
the phrase, right? And it's really believing in people and believing that people, given the space to do it, they can solve complex, interesting problems, and giving them the championing of them doing it, um, and the protection really to be able to do it, really ignites their own creativity.
Yeah, and that's really, I feel like, the thesis of the whole show almost, and a big part of coaching at any level, whether it be sports or agile coaching, things like that. You don't have to know the topic at hand as well as people you're coaching. You're there to have the outsider perspective to, yeah, help problem solve, get a fresh set of eyes, like set everyone else up to do what they do best because they are, the talent, the skill set. And you're just here to facilitate and really set them up to just kick major ass. And that's the point, of the entire show, where it's like he doesn't know jack about soccer, but then he becomes the best coach. Yeah, spoiler, it goes well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spoiler, it goes well.
I just add to that is, we've talked before in terms of some of the softer skills, particularly as a coach. And a big one there is reading people, right? And it's interesting, kind of a backstory here. I remember being really excited about the show, and I pinged Jessica, and I was like, "Have you seen this show yet?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, I've seen all of them." And so it basically was going out to all of my coaching friends, and I texted Greg, and I was like, "Have you seen this show? You need to watch this show." And he's like, "Yeah, okay." No, Greg, you need to watch this show. This show is great. Okay, yeah. And then I think you finished the whole first season in like a day and a half, or 1,000, right?
A day.
Yeah, because it all resonates so much. But the reading the room thing, I brought up Greg because he and I've had conversations about this, and it's interesting now in the world that we work in. It's a little bit more difficult to do that in the virtual space, right? But I think you remember in one of the episodes, early ones, you have Roy, who's that kind of belligerent, the guy that's the captain. He uses the F word like every other word. Sometimes he just says fuck, and it expresses like a whole sentence worth of stuff, right?
That's Jeannie because she swears like a sailor.
Yeah, that's right. That's one of our coaches. She is definitely a Roy. She's definitely a Roy-like character. We'll get Jeannie on the show here soon. You'll understand.
Me too. And like, I now have a new retirement gift that I need to get her.
Yeah, but I think Beard says something like, "Why are you winding him up? What's the deal? You're like kind of messing with him." He's like, "He's the one." He's like, "He's the one. If we're gonna make a change here, he's the first domino that's got to fall." And obviously, because it's writing the show, so that comes. Oh, sorry, I just hit my mic. That comes through later on, like much later on, right? But he seems like the least likely person to really, because the other players don't really like him and all that kind of stuff. And that was one of those ones where I was like, God, I feel that, because I've been in a room with a bunch of people that are working at different levels of organization, and sometimes it's the least likely one. Jess is nodding. You can't see her, but because we worked on the same client.
You gotta look for your Roy Kent.
Yeah, you gotta look for your Roy Kent. You do. You gotta look for your Roy, because you get them across the finish line.
I would also argue you have to look for your Roy, but you also have to look for that counterpart, right, in a room when you're reading it, because you need to be able to calibrate what's happening in that environment, in that physical, social space, to say, all right, who doesn't get along with who? Why is that dynamic happening? These are probably caused by small, situations or issues. How do you put the people all together so that they're going in the same direction and they're happy That's the most important thing. They're happy. They're happy in their work. They're connected to their work. They're doing their work. Like that's what's really important. But that's a really hard thing to do.
It is.
It does. I just went through the Rolodex of Roy Kents that I've worked with.
Yeah.
That developer that is absolutely not going to be doing Agile, and he's going, or she is going to tell you all the reasons why until it clicks. And then once that person is on board, man, they bring the whole rest of the team with them, charging down the field and scoring goals. It is amazing. And what a delightful thing. I love human beings so much. What isn't it amazing that we have patterns of teams? So like you can have teams are humans and different and the same and completely different all at the same time, and having an awareness of the patterns and having an awareness of the differences and having an awareness of each individual human as they are and how they interact with the other humans that are around them. That's Ted Lasso's magic. That's the magic. It's he gets Roy Kent to finally touch the believe sign. He gets Jamie Tart to open up and be vulnerable. And it's all through the work that he does and paying attention to all of that all at once. It's a really hard job.
Yeah, and there's another part of it in terms of how he relates to leadership. So his relationship with Rebecca is a fascinating case study in terms of it's a little less about us as a coach and relating to the coach piece, and more in kind of organizational teamwork and so forth. We talk about all the time on past shows how if leadership doesn't buy in, it's not going to happen. And talk about a leader that was not interested in buying in and fought it tooth and nail through the entire first season. And it's interesting in the second season because really I was like, well, what's that character going to be like? Now that they don't have the kind of success story to that. And I feel like they did a really good job with that and then their relationship as well.
Wait, so just to check in, Rebecca's original design was for chaos and for failure, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. More than just not cooperating, like that was her intent.
Yeah, burn this place down.
Yeah.
And for the people who don't know the show,
that's a great point, Rennie. That is a great point because there are more of those people than you think, and you as a leader, we're talking about leadership now. You have to be wary about those kind of people who have some intent that's malicious, that it's self-motivated, like it's for them, it's all about them, it's narcissistic in some ways, and you can't let that happen. And I don't know, it's hard because they're senior managers or whatever, but you can't let that happen. And I think that you're making a huge and really important point.
The message from Ted Lasso about that leader who's up to sabotage is you coach right through that shit. Break through. You stay committed to them, right?
Yeah.
And the other tough nut I thought was Sharon. Like Dr. Sharon was, whoa. She was like, I was like, how are we going to break through with her? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes circumstance adds to it, right? Allowed them to connect. When she had that accident on her bike, I felt like that was the turning point.
Yeah. Well,
absolutely.
I just want to quickly, though, it's very interesting to hear what you said, Greg, and kind of what we're saying is because it still puts people in a box or a certain saying, okay, they're this person. But as we learn throughout the show, I mean, her reasons for doing it. I mean, if you're gonna have a bad character, a person that's a bad person in the show, it's her ex-husband. Rupert Mannion is the bad guy in this show, and she's actually trying to like stand up to him and show him,
Well, but more importantly, she's reacting. And Jessica and Lauren, I'd love you to chime in on this because I think there's a gender thing going on there, that she is reacting to try to retaliate against him because he's a total,
Son of a bitch. Yeah.
and so, but she's not really making great decisions either because she's motivated in the wrong direction versus, hey, I'm going to build this team and make a great team. She's like, I'm going to get this guy, and it could be either way. It doesn't matter gender wise what it means, but I think that's and whether it's marriage, it's everything. But I think it's an important thing to talk about because I think you can't be motivated by. It's hard as a human being to not be motivated. Is probably the way I should say it, by personal interactions or whatever.
But people are, Greg.
And
I'm just
they
like,
are.
That's
they
my
absolutely
thing.
Are.
So,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say is like, to Rennie's point, he kind of kept being himself, and like he turns out to be no dummy at all. I mean, he obviously can read every room that he walks into. No one knows that, and that's kind of some of the superpower that he has in terms of how he's kind of folksy, cowboy, like Roy Kent said, right? But I think that that's kind of one of the things that's interesting about him. And I was reading this article about a football coach here in the U.S., and everyone was doubting him forever, and basically he just stuck to who he was. He was very genuine, and he believed in giving credit to the players, and he didn't play well in the media, which is an interesting take on this as well, right? From here's what I'm perceived as I'm supposed to be versus who I really am, and he stuck to who he really was.
We haven't heard from Lauren in a while, and I'm interested.
Yeah, I was just about to chime back in, and it's like sounds cheesy, but it's like so true. Where you're never going to regret being yourself, and you're never going to regret being kind. And as much as people act like they don't care, everyone appreciates having someone that cares for them. So even when there's moments like, Rebecca, by the time she is kind of won over by Ted, she's worried that he's gonna, hate her when she tells him her evil plan. And I think his like forgiveness in that is like the strongest seal on their friendship. Just being accepting, even like there's no such thing as too late. Like Rennie said, coach through the stubborn people, just keep going. And the train isn't leaving without them. They're not going to, if they change their mind later, we're not going to say, oh, well, don't you wish you would have bought in earlier? It's never too late. And that is the whole mindset of just feeling like the point is to get everybody on board. The point is that it's never too late. The point is that this is the place to be for every person, every shape and size, because, you're a human 24 hours a day, not just, outside of the 40-hour work week. And it's important to be on a team that acknowledges that. And it's, huge to be able to get to a point where you can, swallow your pride, join something in, and know that you're welcomed with open arms.
Okay, I'm recruiting all of you, just so you know. Just so you know.
Hey, we're all family. That's how it works.
Yeah. And Lauren, I'm really that was really eloquent how you put that together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like the way that you phrased that too about your human 24 hours a day. And I think that we've been trained, or at least traditionally, to shut off that humanness for 40 hours or 60 hours a week, that we're supposed to be one-dimensional.
Right.
And you talked about it
as women too.
Yeah, and you talked about it at the top about what I completely resonated with. You get to bring your humanness back into the workplace, and what that to me means is that we have this front that we put up that's here's who I am. I'm gonna let you read the cover page of my book, but not the rest of it, because the cover, the front page of it is exactly what it is that I want you to see. And agility and coaching. And I think Ted Lasso does a good job of really opening the book and enjoying every page. And I think that agility and coaching and agility and being any part of in an agile environment, whether you're a team member or a leader or a coach, it's the invitation to read every page and really enjoy it, because books are way more complex than just the cover.
Yeah.
And I think it's the opportunity to really enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
I'm
hey,
afraid
Brandon.
I'm going to butcher the quote, but what's the quote where he's like, "I love these little glimpses into your personal life."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is good.
And that's how I feel with remote work too. Every time someone's dog barks, kid runs into the room, there's different things going on. People are like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." I'm like, I love this.
Yeah.
I know. I got to
You
meet
can't
some
hide being
chickens
human.
one time. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Show me
know,
the cats.
I told Brandon this story today. So I just started this new job. It was like a HR, thing where it's like new hire or whatever. So I'm, of course, don't pay attention to anything like that because I'm like, whatever. There's an HR guy that's gonna be talking about something, and so the guy, his name's David, who's really awesome. It gets to me because he did it alphabetically, and I'm like, you did an awesome job with your office, like, so because what you're seeing in your office is amazing, and he's like, well, I can help you with that, and I was like, that's great. This HR guy is gonna set me up. Then 15 minutes later, I realized, oh, he's the CEO of the company, and I was a jackass who was like, hey, I like your room. That's really great. Like, oh, he's like, that guy is not fucking smart at all. Like, that guy,
Yeah.
we got to get rid
I
of
had
that guy
almost
immediately.
I had almost the opposite experience once where I'm like, I was once told my greatest strength is my inability to shut up, and which is a wonderful thing as like a junior person in the workplace. How many times, do different kind of like, stiff work environments tell you, oh, let everybody else talk. We don't want to hear from you. Seem not heard, things like that. I got in this meeting. It's going to be a big quarterly planning. I knew there's going to be a bunch of different people in there. I didn't know who was joining where. I was new to the account. And I'm just chatting up the first couple people in the meeting. And I didn't find out until after the fact that the rest of my team was giggling because I was the newest and youngest person there. And they get on the call and I'm talking with like the COO about tubing. like being like dragged by a boat. I'm like, my dad made me do it, and I was crying the whole time. And they're like, oh my god, I can't believe you're talking about this. But they're like, we're all loving it, and it was awesome. And sometimes that's the greatest way to go into something is completely blinded, because I don't know if I would have said that all if I knew who it was.
Well,
But I'm really glad that I did.
Mm-hmm.
I
Lauren,
imagine that would be refreshing for the COO too. They don't get
I think
treated like
so.
humans very often.
I think
Like
so.
everybody
And
treats them with kid gloves,
Mhm.
and isn't it nice that they actually get to have a human interaction?
And Lauren, here's the thing that I would tell you, because the thing is, Brandon and I joke about the fact that I don't even know what I'm doing. It's not like intentional. I'm just stupid and I don't pay attention. But having that sincerity and that honesty, and just not having the pretense, right, of people who are trying to suck up to their boss. That's a big deal, as somebody who's coming up in the corporate culture. I applaud you. Don't shy away from that, because I've done it completely unintentionally for 20 years, and it never, maybe it did hurt me a couple times, but for the most part, it never hurt me. Everybody's like, what is he talking about? Like, and I know this is off topic, but like, you having that courage, or in my case, stupidity,
Or just being raw, like kids, right?
but people appreciate that, and
Yeah.
like Jess said, and I
Yeah.
think but you have to be brave to do that, right? Because it's scary to be in front of the CEO or the whatever person you're in front of, if you're paying attention, unlike me. But I think it's important to be brave. Jessica is a perfect example of this. And I've watched her, I don't know how long we've been working, for 4 years together or something like that. And she, she is, you're a shy person for the most part, Jess, right? And just watching her like become a leader and leading serious, sessions at SIQ and Accenture, and just watching her grow. And it's because she believed in herself, and other people believed in her as well and encouraged her. People like Neville, and I just want to, sorry, make sure that go for it. Don't apologize.
Yeah. Well, and I think, Jesse had a really good point about leaders just want to be treated human. To get back to the show, I put out a couple of quotes that I just loved from it. And one of them is from Roy. And he says something along the lines of, most adults think that kids need to be constantly entertained. It's bullshit. I didn't need a fucking parade every day growing up, did you? Truth is, they just want to feel like they're part of our lives. And then he ends it with little idiots. But I mean, that's another just nugget of like, he's so grizzled and such a non-happy person, but he hits it on the nail, right? Like people just want to feel like they're a part of people's lives, that they are feeling like they're being treated human. And it's so weird that the different levels depending on what your title is, but I totally agree with you, Jess. Like Lauren's story, Greg's story, like they may actually go home and tell their family and say, like, I actually had a really refreshing conversation today where this guy was telling me he loved my background, instead of like kissing my ass, you know. Or he may be like, what is wrong? Why do we hire that guy? No, I'm kidding. But no, seriously. I mean, I honestly believe most people, and particularly if they've hired coaches, right? That comes from somewhere, right? They're looking for something. And from Jess, Rennie, Lauren, and Greg as well, it's, I've seen all of you at different situations where you just connect with a little comment about what you did over the weekend, or, oh, I love, volunteering at a dog rescue, a lot of different stuff.
To get a little bit back on topic, I actually used that our work family as the example when somebody asked me, what's the best team you've ever been on? And I've been on amazing teams. But we just gotten back from Phoenix, and they asked me what the qualities of that team were. And I kind of melted when I talked about it, because it's an amazing group of humans that are incredibly diverse, and deeply curious, and vulnerable, and willing to challenge in a way that is equally open. Like, I'm challenging you, but I'm open to what you come back with. It's like mental sparring rather than actually trying to injure someone, right? And I'll give credit to you and Brandon. Great leadership. We had phenomenal coaches who cared about us deeply and who treated us as individuals and as a team. And I think that all of that created a team that has bonds that doesn't break, and that continue to work together even when we don't work together.
But don't forget, we also went through, and because of the diversity of the team, right, and which was the best part about the team, in my opinion, anyway. We went through a few things that we had to get through. We had to work some stuff out, and there was a lot of emotion involved in that. And but we did it. We worked through it because we were committed to each other.
That makes me think of the episode in Ted Lasso when they were trying to get rid of the bad juju spirit.
Yeah.
Obviously as a team they went through a lot because they were losing, and they had this new coach, and they had to come together. But there was this moment where they came together kind of emotionally and vulnerably, where they shared things. They put them all in the burn barrel, right? What's the bad juju stuff that you want to put in the burn barrel? And I think I think that we've had qualities of that as well. What are the parts of this team that are bringing us bad juju? And what do we want to put in the burn barrel and get rid of the bad juju? And how do we want to move forward together?
Yeah, that's a great point, Jess. I would say that the teams that I've been a part of, including this one for sure, but other ones, whether it be athletic or anything else, it's the ones where, it's hard. I don't know what it is. It's just maybe the society we grew up in. It's even worse now with social media and stuff. That vulnerability, we brought up vulnerability several times in this show and in past shows and so forth. But, that's the first time we're like, oh, maybe Jamie Tartt's not a complete asshole, right? Like maybe he actually and it's because, abusive father, like, okay. Like anybody talked very, affectionately about his mother and how he wished,
good point.
That, he remembered that the reason he really wanted to play was that it made her happy to see him happy, right? And I think as human beings, even Coach Lasso, right? That's what I also love about this show. I mean, the writing, it deserves all the accolades it's gotten, because not since like a show like The West Wing where I've been like every episode. Interestingly enough, the first two, they're kind of setting stuff up, but every episode after that, I'm like, how did they complete this in the time they needed to complete it? Because the levels of complexity in terms of a human psyche and backgrounds and just kind of dribbling that along is kind of almost how we live and work day to day, where we're like, we'll have an opportunity to share something personally. And every time we do that, and as coaches, I know that we work to try and bring that out as much as we can with our clients. Man, it makes a big difference. It's a huge difference. So, yeah,
the writing is so amazing because it's humorous. And then you read through it. Like I looked through all those quotes that you said, Brandon, and I'm like, holy crap, that's really impressive.
It's prophetic
writing.
Yeah. It is. Lauren, did you have something? Hold on. I thought Lauren had something to say. Sorry, I want to make sure. Lauren's not on video for her modem basically blowing up in her house, so it's a little harder for us to make sure that we can get the signals that she's got something to say.
Well, we ignore Jess all the time, so why would we care about ignoring her, Lauren?
Yeah, but 2 years and several yelling sessions later, Lauren, they'll start to let you in a little more.
Yeah, Jess has paved the way for me. She's made it easier. But no, back on the Jamie Tartt and just vulnerability in general, I think it's really important to, like, in the workplace and also just getting to know people even outside the workplace, making friends wherever you're making them. It's important to do those little nuggets of vulnerability and kind of clue people in what's going on. But for some people, that's really hard. And it kind of takes some time. Sometimes you might have to wait until you're back into a corner where when Jamie's dad comes in the locker room and totally freaks out at him in front of the entire team, that's really exposing. And I don't think he knew, that the team and everyone would have the reaction they did of just support.
Yeah, especially when Roy gives him a hug.
In the workplace.
Yeah.
To say
Lauren, what's really interesting about that you're saying, I'm happy you brought that up, because being backed into a corner and being humiliated by your own family, again, talk about vulnerability. Like, can you imagine?
No.
And so we have to have compassion for people.
That's a tough stance, man. And talking about Rennie when he said his natural stance, even as a coach, honestly, it's less with the clients. And to be perfectly fair, sometimes it's within our larger coaching community that I can be like, oh, this person, oh boy.
Yeah. So firstly, you identified the second antagonist character, which was Jamie's father, along with Rebecca's husband. Now, I can't think of a single other one, but who knows? Maybe something else will reveal itself. And also, there's room for the next season for the show. I don't know what's going on with the show, but
there's only gonna be 3 seasons, unfortunately. Today, because as I already said, it's got a 3-season arc. Then he doesn't really want to do more than that. So.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because Ted has a commitment. I think you heard me say these words before. A commitment that everybody coachable. So
Yeah.
it's like there's opportunity for Jamie's father and Rebecca's former husband, which would be some tough.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lauren.
And then there's the moment that's kind of almost debatable where, I mean, I'm always 100% down for people first, but it is tough when it comes into, like, you know, your career and your job and your livelihood, where, you know, Ted's thinking about bringing Jamie back on the team and isn't necessarily thinking about, he's you kind of weighing the pros and cons of, like, okay, are we going to play to win, or are we going to play for our people? And it comes up more than once with just, you know, bringing Jamie back on. It also has to do with, you know, pulling Roy Kent off at the end too, where he knows this is going to be such a huge ding to his pride, and he is trying to do everything he can possible to avoid it, but he knows that's what he has to do for the team. And then that's like the, you know, the age-old question of, you know, at that point, with all that pressure, do you prioritize the person or do you prioritize the success? And, you know, I still don't really know the answer to that in general, in terms of,
I think you said it,
you know,
though.
is
Very good
it
question.
people's
Very,
livelihoods are
very
at
good
stake?
question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
Yeah,
you said something
people's
around,
livelihoods
like,
are at stake, their careers and their families and, you know, salaries and jobs and things like that. You know, is it more important to win, or is it more important to look out for each individual?
yeah, and you said something about it. So you said it very well, Lauren, about basically doing the right thing is the easy thing, right? That's the, you know, making the decision and kind of being kind, and so if you have that choice, right? And it really isn't wrong, but that's a very black and white way of looking at that. And what you're bringing up now is that gray area, right? How do you make those decisions? And that's a really good question, and I think that's something that us as coaches, the people that we coach, us working as a team, there's a lot of that that's a really good question, and I don't think any of us here would necessarily have a very succinct answer that I can think of, because it's like one of the life's great questions, I'd say.
Hey, so Brandon, do you want to take a break?
Yeah. We're gonna take a quick break. We don't have a sponsor.
One thing I want to make sure, though, is I would take your lead on this. Is there some gender angle that needs to be addressed in this conversation? Because I feel there is. I'm not sure exactly why I feel that is, but it seems to be like something that needs to be brought up. I don't know if there's something there, maybe there isn't. I just think it's kind of an interesting topic.
Lauren, go ahead.
With the show, I'd almost make the opposite argument, that I think one of the most profound things about it is that they're not like, we're going to handle this in a manly man way.
Yeah.
Yep.
And one of my favorite parts is when Ted comes to practice late and he's like, oh, sorry, I was helping the boss pick out like nail polish colors. Like, this is that. What do you think? And just glosses over it. And it's funny and it's sweet.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that makes you like him so much. And I think that's like also one of the points where the team makes the most progress, is when they stop trying to act like big tough guys and they acknowledge that they're people with feelings and concerns and worries just like everybody else. And yeah, so I'd almost say it's the opposite, that one of the big points of the show is like, you know, on both ends of the spectrum, you know, girls can be tough and guys are allowed to not be tough. And when you treat people like people and not, you know, the way that you think they should be, you know, because they're professional soccer players or they're Roy Kent or they're whoever, that's when people make the most progress, is when they can just be themselves. Like, I love
100%.
Keely and Roy's jokes.
We haven't even talked about Keely yet, who is by
awesome.
far my wife and I's favorite character in the show.
But can we? Because Lauren, I mean, I love you. I can't believe I didn't meet you yet. But I think you make a great point. It doesn't need to be
the whole second part of the show
discussion. But I do think your point is really well taken, and I think that we should probably, at least we can mention it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, it's good.
And
we touched a little bit.
I think
Go ahead,
to add on to that, just while Lauren's here, is I appreciate the fact that you said that, because that was the direction I was going. And when a woman is acting like a boss, she's not. If you don't treat her like a bitch and you treat her like a boss, things go well. and that's exactly what Ted does.
mhm.
And I think you're right. That's a real turning point when they all set down their quote unquote roles and really participate as humans and teammates and all of that. But it's
I
better.
totally agree.
That is an aggressive amount of supporting materials. This may be the thickest
Yeah.
episode notes you've sent out thus far.
Yeah. Well, mostly because what I wanted to avoid was most of the episode being, what was that girl's name? What does she do? Wait, the one that, like, you know, becomes like a PR. Who is that? I'm not talking about you, Jess.
Well, that's directed to.
It was definitely directed to Greg.
I think I threw that part away. And we're back. And guess what time it is? It's time to talk about the drinks that we have, which we always talk about every episode. I have a switch up. I'm going to let everybody go because I think I should go last because mine is the most enticing.
Interesting. Enticing. So it's not a cranberry drink with a straw or an umbrella?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Those are always my favorite, though. All right. So I'll start. I'll be kind of bookend it here. Thanks to our friend Brendan, who loves ginger beer. I've got some leftover ginger beer here, so I'm going to have a little vodka ginger beer. Just because I got so much of it, as we always do. And
always.
I got to get rid of the damn stuff.
So much ginger beer.
So, Brendan, shout out to you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Nice. Brenny, what are you drinking?
I really wasn't drinking, but now I'm starting to figure out that I should be.
You were drinking red wine earlier. I saw you.
I was drinking. Well, that was with dinner. That's not really drinking. That's like.
That's the digest. No, not digestive. That's not right. It's the accoutrement to your food.
Yeah, exactly. But by the time Jessica and Greg goes, I'll have a drink in my hand.
He wants to go last, Greg. Nice move.
Well, okay, maybe just Jessica, because it's only taking a second.
Okay.
All right, so here's what I've switched to, and this is actually it's an inspiration from Brandon. It's tonic and vodka with a lime.
So a vodka tonic.
Vodka tonic.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know anything about drinks. Like literally, Allison just told me I'm not allowed to drink bourbon because I smell in the morning. So I'm not drinking bourbon anymore. The vodka doesn't seem to smell as much. Tequila clearly does because Brandon told me that at that when we were in Tucson. So I'm drinking this vodka and tonic and with the lime, and it's I guess it's all right.
I mean, with fruit at home,
I guess it
okay,
does
right,
job.
Jess?
What?
I said with fruit at home is okay, I assume, right, Jess? It's just at the bar.
Yes, if it's home, if it's home fruit, that's fine. Bar fruit, don't touch it.
Yeah. And by the way,
do you know
Greg,
how many fingies have been in that bar fruit? Yeah. That's actually probably how COVID started, but they're going to blame it on a bat.
So Jess, I know that I'm going to divert, and I know we want to make this short, but we went to, we live in New Jersey in the summertime, and we had this fruit fly infestation, and Allison still wakes up in the middle of the night screaming, "No fruit flies!" Like she's freaked out about it. So we have no idea how we got them, but like she went ballistic on the fruit fly thing.
They're
gross.
It's not great.
No.
Yeah.
But by the way, one more correction, Greg. It's vodka.
Oh yeah, vodka.
Yeah,
one of the
vodka.
W's.
One of the W's. Yeah.
Whiskey, wine, vodka, and White Claw.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Although, wait, real quick, have you tried Toco Chico?
Yes, it's amazing. It's like much better than White Claw. So Toco Chico, they make normal soda water, but
apparently.
But
the booze ones are amazing.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
yep.
but I'm with Rennie. I'm going for booze. I'm not going for some seltzer.
Well, it's got booze in it.
Like girly thing.
It's got vodka in it. So this is this. Oh yeah, I know that one. That's tequila,
That's
right?
a sweet. That's cool.
The bottle is amazing.
Espolon. Well, that's probably not
Yeah,
right.
But
'Cause
if
that's
I
French
drink
versus
that,
Spanish.
literally, if I drink that or bourbon and I go to work and I have a meeting at 8:30, people are going to be like, "He drinks in the morning." Because it just sticks. It sticks with me for whatever reason. I don't know.
There's a couple nights at a client that Greg and I worked at, and we were out drinking. I was like,
Yeah.
why don't you take meetings from the hotel in the morning?
So because we were like whiteboarding, we were sitting next to each other, and Brandon's like, "Dude, what did you drink?" I'm like, "I had one shot of tequila that who
That was
John
one
bought
of the
me or
gatherings.
whatever."
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I didn't even drink anything else. I had one shot of tequila, and he's like, "Dude, I can smell it from over here," and it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, "Oh, okay,
I think we were in
Nothing
Tucson,
like-
so that would have been somewhat acceptable.
we were in Tucson." Yeah.
All right.
Two
Greg's.
things.
Sorry,
One,
Reddy's about to take a sweatshirt off.
That's a cool. That's a cool hoodie, by the way. That's cool.
Because I'm trying to keep the earbuds in, but I got to be mindful and I got to hold on to the tail.
There's a lot of challenges there, Reddy.
But
A lot of
tell you what, I'll
challenges.
just be hot for a minute. So I'm drinking a tequila gimlet.
Mmm.
Ooh,
Love
nice.
gimlets. Did you have the pre-made lime cordial thing?
Well, no, I just put it in there. I just winged it.
Gotcha. Good stuff. Jessica.
That looks delicious. I am drinking Witching Hour Red wine, one of the W's. But I also did just have a shot of Fernet in the break. Because it takes a minute to come off of a vacation. You gotta ease into not having that many drinks.
Yeah.
Or sugar drinks. Woof.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I think we covered a lot of stuff. So I think we can kind of go down and just kind of talk a little bit about some highlights and stuff. I thought one of the ways it might be interesting is to kind of go down some of the characters maybe we didn't hit, because each one of these is a tapestry, right? The show, and in fact, I think one of the things, there's two things actually I want to cover. One is kind of covering some of the other characters that we think are important for reasons that are relative to what we've been talking about, and then secondly is the team that makes this show. It's not about the team that's on the show. It's the team the stuff that you see in terms of how they talk about each other, whether it's award shows or interviews. Man, we always talk about Agile. When you see a good Agile team, you're like, yeah, that one. I think from a show standpoint, and there's a lot of things that we probably won't get into, but there's a few points that I want to make sure that we cover. But so we got to start with that. We're kind of going through some of the characters. What do you guys think?
I like it.
Okay. So we talked quite a bit about Rebecca. We haven't really talked about Keely that much. We kind of referenced her.
Keely.
Dude.
Good point.
She's
awesome.
my wife and I's favorite character. Well, Roy, like the fact that they're a couple just makes it even better, right? But Roy and her, and even their relationship, really brings a lot to the show.
Is amazing.
Yeah.
And this isn't Agile. This part isn't Agile stuff, and he wouldn't mind me saying this, but there was a day that my husband brought me home flowers just out of the clear blue nowhere, and it was because we'd watched an episode where Roy Kent sort of realized he was being a dick and was totally fine with saying, I messed that up.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And,
I love that
and
episode.
he did some really, really cool stuff to make up for it. And he just was like, man, if Roy Kent can be a great partner, I gotta step my game up a little bit.
Guys are so stupid.
Well, he's not. That's the crazy thing about it. Like in the second season, I think it's the first episode or something like that, where Rebecca's like, so what does he think of him? Like he checks the boxes and stuff.
So, but here's what I would say. He has bad instincts. Let's just put it that way. And I know that guy. That guy is a real guy from Manchester or Birmingham or wherever he's from. Like that guy is making that decision all day long. So the fact, but the charming part, the way they write it is he's charming because he tries, even though it's not disingenuous, but it's sort of like
here's
cheesy,
Greg.
you know?
But Greg, it's not. I actually don't agree with you that it's cheesy. I think that he actually, here's the thing that I appreciate about him in that relationship. And I don't think there was a while that he wasn't doing it on the field, and sometimes not in the rest of his life, but in his relationship with Keely, he does his self work.
Mm.
He actually takes the time to look at it and say,
Okay, yeah, I
Um,
can agree with that. Yeah,
what's
I agree.
what
Mhm.
is her perspective?
Mm.
And what have I done to create the environment that's happening now? And is that what I really want?
You know what's really interesting about what you're just saying? Because I'm like, okay, now I'm on board with that. But the combination of the two of them, because they're both kind of narcissists, and so they have this complicated relationship
Dude,
where
I disagree. I'm gonna stop you
they're
right there.
always
Keely is not a
going.
narcissist. I mean, she's a product of being good looking, and
Right.
she is not a narcissist, and that's the beauty of that character. She starts off not being a narcissist. That's what I love about that character, is that yes, she's in a position to
totally
be the most
self-involved.
narcissistic out of all of them.
No.
She's totally self-involved.
No, Greg.
Yeah, okay.
No. She has no idea the power that she has
Yeah.
in her.
Yeah,
She is
Well, that's different.
completely
conversation.
unaware.
yeah.
She knows that there are things that like when she
That's a
starts
different
she's doing that
conversation.
silly modeling thing,
Mm.
and she's doing it because the way that I am coming up with this story is that's what she's told that she is,
Yeah,
and she believes them,
yeah.
that's all that she is.
Yep. And it's
And
Rebecca's conversation with her that's amazing. She's like, "So what is it that you do?" When she's offering her like more work through the club, and she's like, "Well, I'm kind of famous for almost being famous," and you can see her head being like, "That's not me."
But this is a subtle difference in what we're saying, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
She finds herself eventually, but initially she's just doing what she thinks is expected of her. And so
Okay. But that's not
she's
narcissistic.
she's doing
self-involved.
Okay,
what
that's not
she
narcissistic though.
she's
No,
doing
it's not
what
narcissistic.
people have told her that she is.
Mhm.
Right.
Which is a lot
Rather
of people
than-
in society, particularly, excuse me,
Mhm.
famous just, but particularly women, they're kind of put in as like, this is your spot, depending on.
We've
certain
talked about
variables.
this
Yeah.
before on the
Yeah.
show, and
Yeah.
Sunny even called me out on the fact that I'm not naturally this blonde. I am a
Sunny.
version of blonde, but not
He
this.
did? Well, I wasn't.
Yeah,
I
you don't
was
remember
I
that from
remember
the
that.
stereotypes episode? Yeah, it was amazing.
Why did he say? Oh, stereotypes.
Yeah,
Okay.
But-
yeah.
But I've certainly been treated like a dumb girl a lot, and been told that that's what I am.
But it's impossible. I mean, anybody who talks to you for at least 2 minutes realizes that is
Well, but see
absolutely
how
not.
successful Keely is at the end. I mean, she
And-
gets hired by like a big company to like run their
sure.
PR.
Greg, that didn't happen until there was someone who actually got curious about me.
Like Rebecca
Didn't-
got curious about Keely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who didn't just say, "Here's your label. Here's who you here." Just I'm gonna look at you and say you're a dumb blonde girl, and that's the end. But when other humans in my space actually got curious about me, and got to know me, and were my champions, were the Rebeccas for me, were the Ted Lassos for me. I just assumed that I was that label. And so I feel really lucky that I've had those people in my life.
That's insane.
But I know
That's
that's
But it's
a
not.
gender thing, man. It's different.
No, I understand all of that.
You want to get
but
into gender
I'm just-
stuff? Here we go.
But what I'm saying is, so I'm just very irritated about that because I have 2 daughters. I was raised by all women, so I've been around strong women my entire life, and I get incensed when somebody doesn't spend 5 minutes talking to somebody, and I don't care if they're a woman or a man or whatever, and then make a judgment, and you might be prejudiced or might be not, but it makes me insane, Jessica. Like, oh.
Well, and it's interesting in the show is that stereotypically for a show like this, it would have been Ted that helped her discover who she really is because that's his thing, right? But it's not him. But it's not him, and I think that was brilliant. I think that was absolutely brilliant because that's also when you start to be like, okay,
Yeah,
Rebecca's not
'cause
an
it's
evil bitch.
empowering thing.
Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
she gets it
Well,
in a way that
it
you and I
empowers
never
her,
would.
but
You
it
know?
empowers her too.
Yeah.
She's not just gonna wait around for some guy to tell her she's good or smart. She's doing her own thing.
And in
Right.
season 2, like it's like the romantic gesture. He's like, I got tickets. We're gonna go somewhere and stuff. She's like, no, I need to concentrate on this. You know, I need to concentrate on this is
Yeah.
my opportunity. And she even shows vulnerability. She's like, I feel like I can do it, but like I need to make sure I do everything that I can to be successful because this is who I really believe I am. It's great writing.
The show is, but I just want to say, Jess, I'm not joking. I have had been around my whole life strong women, smart women. Strong women means one thing, but it means women who are willing to assert their opinion about something and not just, kowtow to some guy or whatever. And you are definitely one of the people I respect the most.
Mhm.
And I could name off the rest of them, by the way, just
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Greg. I appreciate that.
So yeah, we were talking about this. I mean, the Keely character is amazing, and I think
What I love, I'm going to
Yeah,
add in the other
yeah,
thing that I
please.
love about Keely
Mm.
is that as she sort of discovers that she's powerful and interesting and has these talents, that she never loses her authenticity.
Mm-mm.
That she is a very joyful, bubbly person that likes colors. And I don't know if anybody's seen my fingernails lately, but it's that she gets to it's the same with all of these characters, right? Like they get to embrace their whole selves.
Mm-hmm.
And that
we never even talked about the bearded guy.
Well, Beard, Coach Beard.
Oh, Beard.
Yeah, Coach Beard. He's so he's a writer that actually knows all of the. He's one of the writers.
Yeah.
Which is and Roy Kent's actual. He's a writer.
But he's the co-creator of the entire show.
Yeah. He was on the ads, the things that we didn't talk about that created the whole show.
Oh yeah.
The ads for the
Here's
NBC,
the
he was
thing.
on it.
You were talking, Brandon, earlier about the fact that they're a team on and off the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that the woman who plays Rebecca talks about Coach Beard is that he gives the best feedback. That he will say things both like, hey, here's the thing that you're doing that is so amazing, dial it up.
Mm-hmm.
Or, hey, the impact that you're having when you do this, are you recognizing the impact that you might have on the show?
So are you talking about the actress giving him feedback?
No,
other way around.
The guy who plays Coach Beard he's actually a producer. He's one of he and Jason Sudeikis are both they're partners, and the actress that plays Rebecca was talking about the direction that he gives and the feedback that he gives is always and one of the things about really good teams is that they can truly give feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's feedback on that was fantastic, did you see the impact that had, or hey, when you did this, here's what I saw, what did you see? And Coach Beard, the guy who plays Coach Beard apparently does that so well. And because there's so much respect and trust that's on that team outside of the camera, that they can say, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And make adjustments accordingly, because they know that the person saying that only wants the best for them and for their acting career and for the show in general. It's how do we go to the basket together? How do we make this the best thing possible? And we don't have to, it's not, I'm never felt in a sense of offense because they're a team.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a team on and off screen.
Yeah, and I just add to that real quick. That was a question that an interview had asked her and said, hey, who would you say that's on the show that hasn't directed that should be a director? She's like, automatically, I think her and the actress play Keely, like, yes, him. He should be the one. And then secondly, to add to that is the actress that plays Rebecca, she's been on Game of Thrones. I mean, she's had a much more illustrious career than the guy that plays Beard. And the fact that she was like, oh, he has something to add to what I'm doing and is responsive like to that and thinking like, wow, that really helped. That is really getting to like the special place. And we've been on teams like that where people are very, very senior in their careers from coaching and so forth, and they're interested in what the person who just started coaching has to say, and is very interested in what they're doing. They're curious. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing.
I think Rennie is in an Old Spice commercial just based on the background. I'm not sure, but I think that's what's happening. Secondly, I think using the word being curious about whatever is a little like I'm uncomfortable with it.
Well,
like,
so think about it, Greg.
You're curious about me. I'm like, I can have a million different comments about it, but I'm not going to say I'm curious about her.
Well,
it's super creepy.
No. That's not where we're going. We're going like, let's think about on teams we've been on, like Shiloh and Steve, who've been on the show. Brilliant people. They've been doing this for a long time in different levels and so forth. I mean, we couldn't sing their praises enough. When we were all on a team together, well, they had to put up with me because I keep poking them with questions. But Jess and Brendan and other people that were on the team, and they're like, "Hey, we're doing this," and they'd be like, "Oh, tell us more. We're interested. Like, what's going on there? That could be really cool. I want to know more about that."
The word "interested" is better than curious.
Well, I mean, they're curious. No, you're just being weird.
It's just freaky. I don't know. Weird. Sorry, it's just a weird thing. Well, I'm also freaked out about Rennie doing his Old Spice commercial while we're doing the,
Rennie's a man of many talents.
Brady is multitasking.
Yeah.
By the way, you could do the Old Spice commercial because you're super handsome. I remember when I first met you, I was like, this guy he's so big and it's like a guy.
You are a lot taller than I thought you were, honestly, when I met you in person.
What are you, 6'4", 6'5"? Yeah. And you're just like, see me, he's just like this massive, handsome guy, and you're just like, oh, I want to be him. And then you're like, but I'm pasty and white and 6'1". There's no way I'm ever gonna be that person. And but and then I immediately loved you. We met in Tucson for the first time, right?
No, he wasn't in Tucson.
In a van.
No.
In Tucson.
No. That wasn't Rennie. Rennie wasn't with us in Tucson.
I know.
No, Atlanta.
Atlanta.
It was
Atlanta. Yeah.
It was Tucson. Tucson was the.
And we might have been in a van in Atlanta, if I recall.
Possibly. Yeah. Greg
Greg
had a rough weekend, that Atlanta weekend.
I got a migraine. That was unfortunate.
So let me keep going here so we can not have this go forever. We have Jamie. We kind of talked about him a little bit, right? But talk about the arc. We kind of touched on it a little bit, from being like what we thought was the antagonist to he was with Keely, and that's an interesting piece too with Keely, right? He figured out he liked being with her because she made him a better version of like who he really thought he was wanted to be, right? Maybe starting off as superficially, but there was even an episode he says that, Greg, where he literally says, you actually believed in me.
I don't like her. I just don't like her.
What? You're crazy.
I don't like her. She's superficial, and she's a gadget.
This is a problem when you watch the whole episode in one day.
Yeah, Greg, I recommend you go back and actually
Yeah.
Well, I know what you guys are saying. But I'm just saying she's a gadget for the show. Like she's a foil for the rest of the people around her.
Okay.
No, she brings a light.
From the beginning. And that's the thing. Like she's only a gray area in the show because she believed in herself a little bit more than in the beginning. But she's the least gray area of character from beginning to where she is now. That's more like a logical progression versus finding out more about them and all kind of stuff. All right, let's quickly move on because we can't be on forever. We've got Nate the Great. Shelley, we talked about a little bit, but it's going to be interesting going into season 3, given his character development. And it's, in the kind of one of the last episodes of season 2, he kind of basically gives it gives it
Nate's
to.
the like handsome guy.
No. Nate's
right?
the little Indian guy.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
a weasel.
Yeah,
No.
Nate-
But again,
Nate, he did start to take a little bit of a dark turn
Yeah.
for a minute,
yeah,
and I was like, what is going on
Yeah.
there? Right?
which I love. Which I love it not for him, because I don't want him to be like that, because you love the character so much. But that confrontation that he has with Ted Lasso, it may be the
At the
last
very
episode of
end,
season
yeah,
2. You know,
yeah.
he's like,
Last
all I was
episode,
doing is trying to get your
yeah.
attention. All I was doing is doing everything I could and all this kind of stuff. And
I don't care. He's a weasel. He did a bunch of horrible things. I don't like the guy.
well, but that's why I'm saying I think season 3 could be interesting, right? This will be a big challenge for them.
That's the part where I'll be curious
Yeah.
if they put him in a box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They haven't done that with the other character.
Exactly.
No, they're not. Yeah, I think they're fleshing out something with his character that's going to be. I think it's already interesting. Is going to be even more so because, like, the part that the kiss.
Yeah. Again, how
I was
Keely
like-
handles that so well, by the way.
Yeah,
Because
yes,
women
that.
get put in that situation, there's a lot of different ways
I
to
agree
react.
with that.
And
Yeah.
she really.
Yeah.
That's a guy's perspective, right? Like, oh, she handled that really well. But, that embarrasses him even more. And that Roy's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And he's pissed about Jamie saying, he loved her and stuff more than actually him kissing her. It's an interesting dynamic that's there. But yeah, I think that.
But that shows he's
Where's
stupid.
where's
Like, he
the
doesn't
Rupert
get
stuff
it.
you see at the funeral episode that was it Lauren that said they really liked that episode, the funeral one?
Yep.
Where at the end Rupert says to her, like, oh, he's being nice.
Whisper
He's like,
something in his ear.
and he whispers something in his
Yep.
ear. And then the last episode, when they show that he's a coach, he's there again, whispering in the ear. And I think that's a really important thing for the world that we live in, whether it's our teams or whether it's the people that we're coaching. Like,
Well, that's what I was going to ask is, so what happens when, to bring it back to Agile, and, I could name specific people, which I won't, of course, but there are people who behave in ways that even if in a TV show, their intentions might work out. You don't know. We don't know. But they do things in a way that's very detrimental and negative and destructive to a team. How do you deal with them?
well, I can tell you, I sometimes fall into it myself. I'll be perfectly.
Trust me, I can tell you.
Yeah. No, where we talked about stance, right? And the stance that Ted takes, even though he's got a lot of stuff going on, he stays consistent in terms of how he thinks about people, regardless of who they are and what they do. I mean, he doesn't lash back out at Nate when he gives him the business. He tries to apologize, doesn't take it. That happens, right? So I think we're all capable of doing that. And I catch myself right now and then. I'm like, I'm kind of being on the negative side. I need to, and that's one of the reasons I love the show, because it's kind of like, you could go down that path very easily, which again, why I love it.
But Brandon, how far do you go down that path that affects, if you have 17 people on a team and you got one person who's being destructive, how long do you wait? Because you have to take care of the whole team, not one person.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's I was just doing more self-reflection versus the coaching piece. I mean, I've been guilty of giving people the benefit of the doubt in terms of where stuff's coming from. I've definitely been guilty of that. But what I also have to remember is, I mean, Nate has a somewhat legitimate thing. Like, he goes after Roy to bring him in to be the coaching, and he's like the golden child, and like that sucks to kind of like be like the person that they brought in and said, we're going to help you achieve what you want to achieve. And then you start seeing yourself replaced. That's, we talked about reading the room. You got to pay attention to that. Sorry, Jess was going to go. I apologize.
Well, actually, I was going to say something that I heard Rennie say, both on this podcast and in real life. I heard him say it and I was applauding with vigor. But there's nobody that's not coachable.
Mm.
Everyone is coachable, and I think there's part of that everyone is open to coaching, and everyone has someone that they're becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And
But at
that
what
means
price, Jess? At what price do you pay for the entire team? There are 17 people, let's just say, there are 17 people that require the same amount of attention that you're talking about. And you got one person who's a derelict, who's not doing the right thing, who's destructive. You need to spend your time on 16 people who actually do have exactly what you just said, which is the potential, and they want to be coached and they want to get better. But you have an obligation, by the way, as a manager, to make sure that they have a career path and all that. Like I'm getting rid of the one guy. Like I'm not even questioning it.
Rennie, what do you guys say?
Or
So I would
or
say,
woman, whatever, whatever.
just for the sake of energizing the discussion, I would say, consider how the opposite is true. Consider how that one of the 17, that if you create a win for him or her, the impact is going to have on the other 16, to observe and witness your commitment to every single person, right? Because believe me, if you see this person as a struggle, the other 16 people see the same thing. So now, what do we want to create here?
Well, stop being positive.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to worry about the poison
Okay.
pill. I mean, that's a real thing, Rennie. So I agree
Yeah,
with
of
you
course it
100%.
is.
But I will also, to agree with Greg on that point to a certain extent, but I will also say when we've talked about this in the past with Rennie, with other coaches, people had the opinions like sometimes people aren't ready to be coached in a particular moment. And I think that's true too.
Good point.
Good
point.
I think you don't necessarily give up on them completely, but you also either have to gain a better understanding of where they're at. And like this whole show does, right? This whole show is really an emphasis on finding what the underlying things are, right? So sometimes that takes a lot of effort, and sometimes people are just like they're not willing to share. They're in a space, and you just say, "Hey, I'm here for you," right?
Yeah.
And you check in with them, and maybe they're not going to share anything, but if you continuously do it in a way that's the right kind of sequence, and they don't feel like you're constantly on them and stuff, I find that you'll hit them at a right time where they're going to be willing to share what's really going on. And that's powerful.
I agree. And they deserve the chance,
Yeah,
right? I mean, that's the other thing.
They do.
Unless they do something, again, derelict
Yeah.
to wreck the team, they deserve a chance. And it may take time, but you should put the time in. I agree with that. Trust me, I have coached a lot of people, Brandon, that needed a lot of work.
This is true. This is very true. Okay, real quick. Danny Rojas, Football is Life. Come on. That guy,
Danny Rojas.
Danny Rojas. Football is life. I mean, just leave it at that. That's such a brilliant character in a lot of ways too. Roast me, muchacho.
Well, and I also think that that's an important player on the team. So as a coach, as somebody who's building teams, right? You actually do need the Roy Kents who are like, fuck this shit. We can do better. Blah blah blah. Like all of that stuff. You need that. Again, we talked about patterns, right? Like you need that guy that's going to be the one that pushes everybody to think a little bit differently or to push themselves a little bit harder, right? The one that's going to be on the field before everyone and off the field off the field after everyone. You need all of. Again, you're building a group of humans that are going to be able to come together to do something amazing. And I think you also need the Dannys. I think sometimes as the coach, you have to be the Danny Rojas, or as the team lead, you have to be the Danny Rojas, like the one that actually that just knows that he's in the right place and that everyone is excited about this thing.
The joy,
as you are.
The joy,
and the joy. Bring in the joy into it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think we've all either been on the teams with people like that or coach teams like that, and it can be very easy to concentrate on them to what we were talking about, Greg, which is like.
And Jess, this is one of the things I love about you so much is that joy part, and people don't use that word very often. That is when I'm talking. So I'm just started a new job, so I have all these 27 people or whatever they're reporting to me, and when I talk to each one of them, I talk about what do you need. what do you need from me? Because I'm not, they're like, well, do you want me to tell you if I'm taking my doctor's appointment or whatever? I'm like, no, you can manage your own time. You're an adult professional person who can manage their own time and do your work. But if you need something, come to me, because that's what my job is. I'm not managing you. I'm supporting you, and it's really interesting to have all these conversations. And I'd love to actually have a conversation with you about this, Jess, about because these people are all way different, but they work for a really good company who basically shares the same values. And they have a good product, but I mean, there's still questions about who do I report to, what do I do, all that. But for the most part, every time I talk to them, I'm like, no, I'm not I'm not managing you. That's a horrible, horrible thing. And if you want to have a one-on-one, I'll have a one-on-one, but I should always be one-on-one with you, always. Like you should just call me if you need me to talk to me. Don't wait till Tuesday, And so I think that spirit is really important that you brought up, and I think people are unfamiliar with it. Let's put it that way.
So another character I want to bring up, because we talked about Roy, and I think this character is actually really important to Roy's character development, is Isaac McAdoo, the guy that winds up being the captain. It says bruv. Hey, bruv. Yeah, he's interesting from the fact that I think Nate the Great gives him kind of that as part of the roasting, where he's like, you act really tough, but what are you actually doing on the field? He becomes the captain because Roy sees that he really cares, right? But then in season 2, you see that he's struggling, and it's actually Roy who kind of takes him back to where he used to play soccer, and it's like, you're missing the love of it. You've become a professional, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Rennie, you may have some context on this from just kind of playing in sports and stuff, but where it doesn't become a fun thing that you grew up as a kid doing and you love doing it, right? To being like a business.
Rennie played sports? I didn't know this.
Yeah. Well, I try not to advertise it because, Rennie's much, much, much more than someone who played football back in the day. But I mean, I'd be, curious, Rennie, from your standpoint, is there anything you see in that kind of that character arc for Isaac that resonates?
Yeah, of course it does. So for me, I think I may have shared this story before, but it's that moment when you realize it's a business, and so that in that moment, there's some adjustment that you have to do internally to because you can't treat it like fun and games the way you used to, and as a child, right? You have to respect the fact that it's a business and there's other pressures that are bearing down on the efforts that you make every day. But also continue to keep it fun and keep the energy that got you motivated and got you to, that was your part of your winning formula. So it's a tricky balance. And for me, I was in college. I was like, at the time, I think I was 19 years old or maybe 20. And we had a terrible game and a coach came in and he was really upset and he was throwing chalk around the room. Back then we used chalk on the board. And he was going on about not wanting to have to take his kids out of a particular middle school. And in my brain, I'm thinking, what does me missing that block have to do with your kids in this middle school? And then it just all of the, synaptic gaps start to happen. Oh, right. If we fuck up and we lose, you get fired. You have to move your family. Oh, okay. This is a business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think what you just said was so profound, because it's what Jess said about joy and enjoying your job and wanting to go to your job. But at the end of the day, it's a business, and you have to think about the business. I mean,
yes,
really, you have to, and you don't really have a choice between the two. But you want to, if you can, in some way, magically make it all work together. That's
So let's go back. Let's contextualize it. The sandbox, right? That's part of the dimensions of the sandbox. It's a business. You have to know certain things. You have to have certain competencies. In the context of those competencies and in the context of the business environment, from there is where you bring that creativity and that play and that special stuff.
And I think that honestly is the message of this show.
Yep.
It's
I
the
agree.
message of the show of understanding that it's a business. And he gets quoted as saying it's not about the wins and losses, and you can quote me on it again. And Trent Krim's like, I can't believe you said that more than once, right? Because we're gonna destroy you in the press if you keep doing this, saying stuff like that. But is it reality? It'd be interesting. But I think there's some interesting parallels in some of the stuff I've been seeing in sports recently for the ones that you've got, whether it's athletic directors in college or you've got, pro owners and stuff. Some of them think differently, and it makes a big and profound difference for those. We talked about those teams that win a lot. You're seeing that. Yes, they have understanding it's professional. However, there's a connection, and it has to come from somewhere.
Well, and I'll take that to the book that I've been recommending to everyone lately, The Heart of Business. That if you care about your people and you pay attention to not just the people that work for you, but for like the environment, and how do we help as a very large corporation, how do we help underserved, underprivileged kids have access to technology? Like, and really do it, really buy into it. And how do we care about the environment? That because all of the stakeholders are humans. And people are starting to in the end, and people are starting to think differently. And if you truly care about the people, whether it's the people as your customer, where they're not just a customer that's coming into your store to buy something, but you actually care whether or not they're buying the right thing that's going to serve them best, whether or your employees, or name the myriad of stakeholders that we have as organizations in the planet Earth, that your bottom line actually you make more money by doing all of these things that actually care, that you truly care, and not fluff care, but actually care. I'm going to do the right thing for the environment. I'm going to do the right, even though occasionally it might be a little bit of a hit. Like it's going to be more expensive for me to put solar panels up, but people are going to hear about that, and they're going to say, you know what, I actually want to shop there because you're doing this, because you're doing this, because you're doing this. The environment that we're in is changing, and I believe wholeheartedly that if you put the care into human beings, the profit will come in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that part of that is what we talked with Josh in the last episode, which is we're in the midst of the Great Resignation. People are going to get really choosy about where they work and do the values that I have because I'm spending more time at work than I am individually.
Absolutely.
Does it match with, hey, you've got kids, or hey, you've got grandparents, you got parents you have to take care of. Hey, you have life. Like, we care about that.
This great resignation age is, to me, is people saying, I only want to do things that align with my values, right? So it's just values forward. And by the way, I think this is great.
Yeah.
I think.
It's sorry it took a pandemic to kind of force the hand, obviously, but yes, I 100% agree. And sometimes you need that kind of catalyst to force change, really.
Well, and I'll just give you an example. So today I had this kind of unfortunate meeting with the CEO of the company that I just joined because I was stupid and said dumb things. But their ethos is exactly what you're talking about. It's how do we contribute? How are we going to make sure we communicate how we contribute? How are we going to make sure that we keep our people healthy, good, and that means time off, health, all that. I mean, they have this ethos that is all about that. No, and so I think that as long as they can maintain that, because that's not an easy thing to do, by the way. That's a hard, especially if you're private equity or whatever. But it's a noble thing to do, and everybody responds to it very, very, very positively.
Yeah, and I just want to wrap up because the other point we wanted to talk about really quick was the actual actors. We touched on it a little bit, but this group that creates this show. The one thing I want to point out is across the board, almost every single actor that's on the show and the writers and everyone else says it's amazing because in that second season, it could have all been about Sudeikis, right? It could have been very much it's my show. I'm the main character. I'm responsible for like making sure it's successful. You see in the second season, he starts to pull back as the main character, quote unquote, right? All of the other people that are part of the show, their characters are the ones that are more developed, with the exception of him and his relationship with Dr. Sharon Fieldstone, right? But he builds up her character.
Talk about that,
right?
Yeah.
He builds up her character. But what you see in every interview, you see at the award shows. I mean, the one that plays Rebecca, you guys, I'll put it on the link on the website for this episode. Her speech about, she basically talks about the impact that Sudeikis made on her and her kids. She's a single mom. Was not just the show. It was she was on Game of Thrones and had some success from that, but she was like, you changed my life. This is one that was on Game of Thrones, right?
You know what the interesting thing about Jason Sudeikis is that when he talks about Ted Lasso, he talks about this is the person that I wish that I was. And like this is the best version of me. That
really?
Ted Lasso is the best version of me, and every single person around him, every time he says that, looks at him and says, "He's not the best. He is you."
Yeah. All the other people on the show.
He is you all the time.
Yeah.
This is you.
Yeah.
And he doesn't see it. It's very honest. It's very earnest. He's not putting on airs about that. But everyone else sees him. This is not the best version when you wake up in the morning and you have a perfect day. This is who you are every day.
Yeah. And it's we say it all the time. We've been on teams together, right? Where we're like, that you said it earlier, Jess, when people ask you about the best team you'd be on, it's easy. It's like it's a snap judgment that you know that you feel very confident about. And there's so many levels to the show. I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this together, given that we've been on teams together and we've in various sorts, and we've coached teams, right? Like it's a multi-level look at teams, both the ones you're part of and the ones that you're trying to help them get to what Lauren talked about, right? Which is really affecting their lives.
Yeah, and I would add this to Jess's point, who, again, I very much appreciate. I think I made her mad during this episode. But it's respect and trust. And if you don't focus on those two things, which are not easy, they're not easy to do. But if you can't focus on those two things, you're not going to build a team. Because you have to have those two pieces in order to, and then you have to have intelligence and all the rest of this stuff. But trust and respect is how you build a team. Even if you have deficient people, on the team who need help to get to a different place, they need education, they need support or whatever. But you have to respect them and get them up, and then trust them as well. And so, to me, I think that again is the takeaway from a coaching perspective, which Jessica is so good at, is that those two things are the thing I bring up all the time: is trust and respect, which I learned from SIQ.
Yeah, and we're all going to go off to do various things, whether it's where we are now or somewhere else, and I think the effect of you're going to hear those actors down the road, they'll answer the question the same way. Oh, it's Ted Lasso. What made a difference in your life is that show.
Oh.
Well, but here's the other thing I would say about that is that they've had that experience. And they're going to take that experience with them. I always think about...
So it expands, right? Like, yeah.
The ripples, right? Like the ripple effect that an experience like that will have, that an experience like working with someone like Ted Lasso will have. That the that was a really big, that was like a giant rock, right? That now is giving ripples out into the world. And so all of those actors and writers and crew members, everybody on the show now has a little bit of that magic that they're going to take out into the world, and they're going to drop their own rocks and create their own ripples because they've had that experience and they know how good it can be, and they're going to strive to continue that. And I think that's part of the magic of Ted Lasso. And I think that's part of the magic of coaching.
Yeah. Yeah. But I will go back to everything you said about, there's like 30 things you said, Jess, that I appreciate. And I'm not sucking up to you. Maybe I am a little bit, but it's also
Stop trying to recruit me, Greg.
but it's also just having the connection and the commitment to people, to humans, right? Because humans are awesome. Almost 98% of the time, humans are awesome. And like, I always used to say this when I first started managing. I used to go to these like Christmas parties and stuff, and I knew everybody's wife's name. I knew all their kids' names. I didn't know them maybe personally, but I could have a conversation about their family, about, and they knew I was committed. I think that's important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's we shall be goldfish, more like goldfish, right? Which is a great quote from that show. But I mean, the end of the first season, where it's like, I promise you there's something worse out there than being sad, and that's being alone and being sad. And he says, no one in this room is alone. Yeah. That's some good writing right there, because we've all been there, but when you have a team, right, there's nothing better, because we can all pick each other up, we can all understand each other, and it's for all the teams we coach too, right? Making sure that they don't feel alone, because that's pretty much our job. Right?
Yep.
All right.
You're going on a journey, and you're not alone.
You're not alone. Well,
and it's amazing to celebrate. Look at our team. You guys all came to Phoenix. We love each other. Like, I was telling my wife, like, we're family.
Yeah. And it's amazing to be part of family, and to this family, I want to say thank you. It's late in the night for a lot of you. So love and appreciate you guys. This was a lot of fun. Hope everyone has an awesome holiday and New Year, and we'll pick it up again in the new year.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, guys. Cheers.
Happy holidays.
Thanks, Rennie.
All right. Bye-bye.